is now my pleasure to introduce our 2019 Founders Day speaker. Salem alumna Lossie Freeman, College, 1997, has had a distinguished career that has spanned the globe. She holds a BA in economics from Salem College and a master's degree in public administration and economic policy management from Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. She studied abroad as an undergraduate in Shanghai in 1995, and after graduate school worked briefly at the U.S. Consulate in China in the economic and political section. She began her career on Wall Street at JP Morgan as an internal global consultant. She assisted in the launch of their FX business in Seoul and a joint venture in Tokyo. She was a licensed broker-dealer on the JPM-listed equity trading desk and a clerk on the New York Stock Exchange. And if that wasn't sufficient, she currently works as special assistant to the mayor for employment initiatives in Wilmington, Delaware. In that role, she coordinates the administration's efforts to develop a robust employment infrastructure in partnership with business. It is my great honor, my great privilege, to welcome and introduce Ms. Lossie Freeman. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome.
Geez, she makes it sound so good. I'm so happy to be here. You guys just don't know. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, Dr. Doran. Thank you so much, Salem family, for the warm welcome. I'm really excited to be here. It is difficult to put into words what an amazing honor it is to be here and to talk about what this institution has done for me and what it means to me. I must confess, I've been stressed about this speaking thing. Trust me, nothing is more intimidating to an otherwise self-confident woman of purpose than an auditorium full of women of purpose. And nothing is more beautiful. So I asked myself, what do they want to know? Am I too old? Will they relate to me? And then I got here. And I walked onto this campus that still feels like home. We heard from the most incredibly bright and accomplished students the other night, and a fellow board member, Brandy, my homegirl, class of 1997, leaned over to me and she said, "Wow, it's still the same Salem." And that's how I felt, and that made me feel very much at ease. And then I had to go back and rewrite my speech. But regardless of the year that you graduated or attended Salem, we all share a bond, and it's a commonality that makes this place so special. So while I'm grateful beyond all measure to have been asked to speak today, I have to say that just like those students last night, any of my Salem sisters could be at this podium telling their own unique and equally remarkable stories. I am just one of a sea of talented and accomplished Salem women. Exceptionalism is our norm. That's Salem. It's Founders Day, so I'm going to talk about my foundation and the pivotal role that Salem has played in my life. I'm going to share some of my stories about my Salem experience, my early career, and then they always want you to share some kernels of wisdom at these things, so I'm going to get to some of that too. I've had an incredible journey thus far. It was the summer of 1992. I was a rising high school senior from rural eastern North Carolina, tobacco-growing town of Wilson. I knew I was going to college, and I was going to go as far away from home as possible. That summer, I attended Girls State, and I met Catherine Knapp Watts. See? As all of you know, once you met Catherine, you start receiving these handwritten postcards about this obviously fictitious place called Salem. And then they lure you to visit this spectacular campus, and you see that it is a real place. And then you stay for an overnight weekend and connect with the most remarkable women who will become your lifelong friends, Cherie Fowler, Professor Fowler, Debbie Goldberg, L'Oreal Robinson, Raphael Green, Brandy Nelson, Dina Bass, and others. The list goes on. And the next thing you know, you can't imagine going to school any other place. In fact, I never even applied anywhere else. I wanted to be the next Madeleine Albright and an ambassador in the Foreign Service. I was an international relations major studying under Dr. Cubans. It was no joke. See, frankly, I struggled, and I almost lost my Chatham Scholarship the first semester, but I hung in there. As any well-rounded liberal arts student, I took economics as part of my required coursework and fell in love. Economics just made sense to me. And Dr. Craig Richardson was and still is one of the most dynamic professors and completely transformed my critical thinking process and the way that I learned for the rest of my life. Called home to tell my parents I was going to change my major, worried that they might be concerned about it or disappointed. And my dad, in true form, said, "Look, listen, if you can get an A in it." So I changed my major. Salem women are adaptable to change, and we quickly pivot when something is clearly not working. What happened my sophomore year again changed the trajectory of my life. I had a campus job in food services, and one evening I was serving the Board of Trustees dinner in the RG House. That's right, from scholarship food server to board member. Is this a great country or what? Anyway, the president of the Academy and College at that time, Dr. Julianne Stillthrift, whom I love dearly and still communicates with her to this day, was sitting at the table with the president of Wachovia Bank at that time. His name is J. Walter McDowell, and I think that Bud Baker was also at that table. And he asked if there were any students that did this type of work, and she said, "Why, yes." "Lossie, get over here." Now you tell me how many schools you can go to where the president of the college knows the students by name. That's Salem. So I came over and I gave my 30-second commercial, because we've been practicing it in College 200 and I was ready. Told him my major, my interests, "Nice to meet you," and then I go back to serving. After dinner, Dr. Thrift came over and said, "J. Walter McDowell wants to offer you an internship in the International Banking Division at Wachovia Bank, Jan term." I was so ecstatic, I couldn't believe it. Dr. Thrift brokered that for me, and I am forever grateful. That's Salem. I had an outstanding Jan term. Preparation met opportunity, and I learned as much as I could. I was the first one in and the last one out. Now, they didn't have an undergrad internship program at that time, but they offered me a summer internship as the only undergraduate in an MBA internship program in Atlanta. There was just one problem. I was a rising sophomore. I didn't know anybody in Atlanta, couldn't afford an apartment, and my parents knew me, and they were not going to let me go to Hotlanta by myself. So in stepped Salem College alumna, Lisa Bankoff, and her family, who generously offered to let me stay with them for the entire summer in Atlanta. Oh, it was rough. It was really hard living in Buckhead. Just a few short bus ride from my job. Had to go to the lake house on the weekends, hanging out in the clubhouse at the pool with her incredible kids and her dog. But the Salem Network and a caring and generous alumni made that opportunity possible for me and for many others after me. So thank you, Lisa, and that's Salem. Spring of my junior year, I was in Main Hall looking at the bulletin board, and the Syracuse University Study Abroad program jumped out at me. Study international trade and international banking in Shanghai. I peeled it off and I applied. Back then you actually had to write them to get an application, fill it out, and mail it in, and wait. I got accepted. My Salem, well, it wasn't even my professor, but Dr. Sun voluntarily tutored me in Chinese. But now I was wondering, how am I going to pay for this program? I got it. I'm going to write a fundraiser letter to all my friends and my family, my aunts and uncles. Oh, and by the way, I'll send it to Salem College alumni. It was successful, and the money started coming in. I was overjoyed. Then I got a call to come to the office of the president. she sat me down and she very firmly but lovingly said, "I understand you've been writing." Oh, I wish Margaret was here to do the impression. She can do such a great impression of Dr. Thrift. But she said, "I understand you've been writing to the alumni and asking them for money." And I proudly said, "Yeah." She said, "I admire your moxie, but you need to cease and desist. I cannot have you writing to my donors. And while I love me some Lossie, I have to ask those same donors for money for things that impact the entire institution. And one is not greater than the whole." That was such a powerful lesson, and it really stuck with me. It has been very valuable to me over the years. We are all part of something much larger than ourselves. That's Salem. Okay, now we'll get into the lessons that I've learned that I'll share with you, if you bear with me. Lesson number 1, be bold. I went to China in the summer of 1995, a much different China from today. The sleeping giant was just waking up, and the experience blew my mind. I almost died in a sea of bicycles trying to cross the street in Beijing. We went to visit multinational corporations that were just being set up in Beijing and Shanghai. And you'll see the Pudong district there, which is now huge. Beijing Jeep was one of the first companies there, and it was just tracks in the ground. And now it's this huge investment zone. I got all fired up, and I took advantage of the cross-registration program at Wake Forest University and studied Mandarin. While I was hanging out in the cafeteria one day, this is after I came back to school, I met a student who'd done an internship at an investment bank on Wall Street. And that was some next level stuff. And I asked him, how did he find out about it? And did he think that I might be qualified? Of course, I had my resume in my backpack. And he said, sure. So I went down to their career services. I found the job that was perfect for me, global consultant, JP Morgan. I applied. I was invited to interview on campus, a group interview. Then I was invited to come to New York and interview. And I got the job. I beat out every Wake Forest student that year. The career services found out it was too late. Had a great career. I worked there for 8 years, including clerking on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, which was a real high point for me. The day I was able to take my dad down on a tour of the Stock Exchange is one of my most proud moments ever. 8 years later, I quit that job, and I went backpacking across Europe for 3 months. 2 pair of underwear, 2 pair of pants. I came home and I showered and I went to China for 4 months. Well, that's a whole nother story. Be bold. Lesson number 2, work on your attitude. Attitude is your most important asset and the factor that will most impact your ability to succeed. It is more important than facts, circumstances, talent, looks, intelligence, creativity, connections, or money. Attitude. And the lucky thing is, it's the one thing that you have the most control over. Every day, every minute, your choice. Psychologist Carol Dweck of Stanford University has spent her entire career researching attitude and performance. Her research determined that attitude is a more likely predictor of success than IQ. Attitude can make the impossible possible. So I got this great job on Wall Street, and I find this lovely apartment, and I moved to Brooklyn. I'm 21 years old. I've got about $1,500 left over from my sign-on bonus. I'm terrified. I do not have a safety net. Failure is not an option, and I'm not going back to Wilson. My trainee class would be trained as consultants to perform process reengineering and project management. We'd then be assigned to cool projects around the world. But no sooner than we arrived in these shiny new jobs, the firm made a strategic shift. They were opening an Asia consulting group and a European consulting group. And I'm sorry, little hotshots, but your opportunity to travel is now over. Oh my gosh, the disappointment and the outrage of these recent grads, these Ivy Leaguers. They actually complained to our boss, and I just couldn't understand it. I was grateful that I still had a job, and I understood that the firm was not there for my personal travel. I kept my mouth shut, I kept my positive attitude, and I did my job. Out of a class of about 45 folks, 3 or 4 of us got international assignments. And who do you think was one of them? Attitude, more important than facts or circumstances. Lesson number 3, I hear a lot from young people about building their personal brand and creating their profile, and you guys are all digital and it's the internet age and social media. I won't say forget that, but forget that. Or at least get your focus right. Focus on the substance over the form. And what I mean is let the quality of your work speak for you. There is no substitution for honing your craft and being good. When you're good, people will want you on their team. Let that be your brand. Lesson number 4, start with why. Thank you, Lucy Rose. She just had us read a book, Start With Why. You will find that most people don't know why they do the things that they do. It's just the way that it's always been done. You will add value just by asking why. Seek to understand everything that you do. You should be able to explain why you do a thing in a certain way. While everyone else is trying to build a better mousetrap, the Salem grad will challenge and dismantle previous assumptions. One of my early projects was working back office, processing foreign exchange trades. I would see all the trades, the clients, the revenues, and part of the job was to run this report for the traders. I couldn't start until 6:30 at night after all the batches had run, and it was tedious. Then I would place them on every sales trader's desk in the morning for them to see. And I quickly noticed that all my hard work was littering the floor. No one was reading them. They weren't reading them because they had nothing useful in them. So I changed it. One night I produced a new report, and I held my breath. The next morning came. They loved it. It helped them. They began asking for customized this and that. They liked that I understood what they needed and the purpose for the reports in the first place. I went from obscure trade process girl with no name to a valued team member who helped increase their sales by demonstrating higher level understanding, critical thinking, and taking a calculated risk. They sent me to Seoul, Korea to help launch the brand new foreign exchange trading office. Start with why. Never be too afraid to ask questions. I promise you there is someone else, or a few someones in the room who don't know either, and don't have the courage to ask. I'm always amazed at how the discussion is transformed from a bunch of nodding and pretending participants to a rigorous and beneficial discussion when you ask questions. You can't fake it. It'll catch up with you. You can't learn if you don't ask questions. I don't even know what number I'm on, but work yourself out of a job. You're thinking, what is she talking about? Sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I've always tried to work myself out of a job. Always be thinking about ways that your job can be done differently. And I promise you, if you're not thinking about these things, someone else always is, and it likely won't go your way. You cannot stop progress. Look towards what's next, or you'll be left behind. You will always come across people in your career whose primary function is maintaining their own job security. They are information hoarders. They won't teach you anything and they won't share what they know. Or they'll try to overcomplicate things to make themselves appear critical when they're not. They'll be intimidated by you. If this toxic culture is strong enough in an organization, you may even be tempted to adopt this behavior yourself. Don't. Always choose collaboration and growth. Your company and the world needs your solutions and your best efforts. Change is inevitable. In whatever organization you land in, embrace it, own it, shape it, drive it, continue to be lifelong learners. If you strive to work yourself out of a job, you will always have a job. Lastly, I want to say, don't be fooled by what this looks like, or the shiny side of the coin. We all love to talk about our successes. There will be successes, but there will be hardships in your life too. Many of you may have already experienced and endured a few. You're still here. For others who have not yet, let me assure you, into every life a little rain must fall. And I pray that you will experience more joys than pain and more happiness than sorrow. But at some point, you will be met with challenges and grief that will shake you to your core. There's no classroom, no degree that teaches you how to cope and survive and manage your emotions and personal struggles and still deliver every day. No MBA or JD teaches you how to cope with losing your job or relationship that you thought was forever. No educational pursuit can prepare you for infertility or an out-of-the-blue medical diagnosis or the passing of a loved one. Regardless, you will still have to get up every day and produce. Most of the time, no one will even know what you are going through. Showing up, delivering every single day, this is the reality and the price of being a servant leader. This is where you will discover your grace and your strength. When you find yourself in the valley, remember your secret weapon. You have an entire army of sisters that you can lean on for strength, affirmation, and support. These women that you are seated next to right now will become more and more important to you through the years and through the course of your life. They are your foundation and your rock. Protect and nurture those friendships. Those bonds will sustain you. That too is Salem. This place is so special to me and really helped make me the person that I am today. The education, the experiences, the community, the relationships. Salem girls are confident, capable, and exceptional women. On Founders Day, we celebrate how Salem's 250-year history started with a 500-mile journey embarked upon by a few courageous women. But that was just the first 500 miles. Our stories continue on through you and our thousands of accomplished graduates through the years since, and the future alumni who have yet to come through her doors. At Salem, we believe in the unique value of women and girls to positively shape and transform their communities and the world. We're counting on you. At Salem, you get a unique and transformative experience with women at the center. And I believe that Salem Academy and College can do this better than any other institution in America. This is our place. This is our time. I love you all.
So, I don't know about you, I want to be Lossie Freeman. So we've heard that Lossie is a world traveler. She's been to Wilson. The first stop, not the final stop. Winston-Salem. Atlanta. China. Washington, D.C., New York, Delaware, and friends, she is not done yet. In her honor, we are really proud to present Lossie Freeman with a picture of Home Sweet Salem. Life takes her, wherever her next job takes her, wherever her next leadership position takes her, wherever we go to visit her, whether we're an intern or whether it's a road trip for the Board of Trustees, she will have Salem with her. This painting was painted by John Hutton. Many of you know. And we are so grateful. So thank you, Lossie.